Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack. All right. You got this stuff?
Yeah, all cleaned in oil.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's get it on.
Who are these guys?
It's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Live from Springfield, Missouri, the one, the only,
Thank you, Scott. Yeah. Yes. Now watch me get down. Get it. Do it. Yeah.
Excuse me, can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Good morning. Oh, it's Thursday again. It's Morning Coffee with Keith. As always, joined by the man with the plan, Martin, and Joe's Atmosphere, because he's cool like that.
Okay. First of all, in the words of a wise man, do I look like somebody who has a plan?
Yeah.
Good to see you guys. Haven't seen you in a while.
Good to see you, man.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Martin. I saw him all day yesterday. So. But Keith, I haven't seen in a while. It's good to see you.
And for Joe,
Hello, Joe.
Hello, Martin. It's so good to see you. Yes.
You know what?
He's awesome.
I tried to come up with some really cool stuff to talk about today, but it was very important to me personally, first of all, to look over and just say hello to everybody in the chat, starting with the lovely Penny, because she's cool like that.
Yes, she is. Hope Danny's doing well, too.
Yeah, I hope so, too. Tell him I said hello. But I thought it was very important, since last week we had celebrated William Shatner's birthday, to also celebrate and highlight Leonard Nimoy's birthday. Because as I've said before, the month of March was very important during the production of Star Trek, when it was originally in production. Mm-hmm. Turns out that quite a few of cast and crew actually had birthdays mainly in the month of March. And so March was a very popular month on set during the production of the television series. And I just think, oh, wait a minute, Daniel's 24. You know what? First of all, let me stop all that and just say congratulations. Yeah, that's incredible. That should be celebrated.
Absolutely.
It's difficult. And I just want to say I'm proud of what you've accomplished up to this point. It hasn't probably been easy for you, but I'm proud of you, my friend. I'm proud of you. Anyway, I wanted to again talk and highlight the life of Leonard Nimoy. I've always admired him, not just on Star Trek, but for a lot of the projects that he was a part of during his life. And I like the fact that he was someone that was very active, and especially in his later years, he never really stopped. He never just took time off to just relax. He was always doing something. And I'm still amazed by how many fans of his don't realize that probably almost a good year before he died, he was a semi-regular on a network television show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know,
he was on Fringe, right?
that's it.
Mm-hmm.
He played a very pivotal role on that show.
Yep.
And it was, Shanatsky, that's the thing about that whole directing thing. Their relationship is pretty easy to understand when you get the other additional story that makes that make more sense. Okay? You have to understand that while Bill was directing Star Trek V, there's a reason why Leonard didn't help him with that film. And it wasn't because he hated William Shatner. Had nothing to do with him. Had to do with someone else who he did not care for. And I know it's kind of rare to hear that Leonard Nimoy actually didn't like somebody. But there was a certain person involved with the movie who he did not care for. And he made it both of them made it pretty clear they didn't like each other. And in the case of Leonard Nimoy, he just felt that this particular person was very manipulative and not to be trusted. Period. It got to the point where they had to kind of have an intervention before they could begin production, just so that Leonard would go ahead and be in the movie and be able to be on the same set as this particular person.
Damn.
Wow.
And again, I tell people, there is a lot to the history of Star Trek that you really don't know. And people get put off all the time about, really coming from certain actors who have had a lot of beef with Shatner. Okay, real or imagined, or just whatever it is. And it's amazing how you don't hear the rest of the stories that happen. Mm-hmm. Leonard Nimoy actually did not care for Harve Bennett. He did not care for the guy at all. And he warned Shatner about doing business with him and having him as the producer of the film for Star Trek V. Because he told Bill, he said, look, I had a lot of difficulty with him. I don't trust the guy. I don't think you should trust him. If you do so at your own peril. And as Gerry eventually learned, and as I've told people, the movie Star Trek V is a good example of someone who has a really good idea and how badly somebody else can mess it up.
Yeah, poor execution, because it was a great idea.
It was a really good idea, but you really need to have a producer that is on it. That's how important a producer is. A bad producer can sink your production quicker than anything. And that whole thing about, for instance,
Kathleen Kennedy?
No. I wouldn't. Let's just skip over Kathleen Kennedy for a moment.
Scaring me.
The thing about Harve Bennett is this: the guy basically he did know his stuff. He definitely deserved credit when he was given the assignment to help to streamline Star Trek after Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Okay. Mm-hmm. Having worked on $6 Million Man and a few other things, the guy definitely knew his stuff. He knew enough to be able to help to create the formula that was used in order to scale down Star Trek in a way that allowed it to make more money and it make more economic sense moving forward for all the movies. I will always give him credit for that. I think that though the credit for the actual script and how good it is, Harve Bennett can try to take credit, but the reality is that that really wasn't him.
Yeah.
He set up a lot of it, but what you had was someone as talented as Nicholas Meyer,
Yeah.
who used his not being a Star Trek fan. He used it in a way that really complemented what they were attempting to do for the movie. And unlike certain people today, he decided to actually sit down and attempt to watch as many episodes of the television series as he could. Now,
Did
he
his
didn't-
research, kind of like a guy named Kevin Conroy we know that didn't know anything about Batman, right?
That's right. So, but here's the thing. He didn't watch every single episode, but he watched it enough to be able to clue in as to how to approach it. Because he was not a fan. He had heard of the show when it was on, but he never watched it. The other thing you got to know about Nicholas Myers, he's a very well-read man. He has no time for people who are ignorant or who are going to waste his time. He really doesn't. That's the reason why he doesn't do too many interviews. But he figured out that when he found out that Star Trek as an idea was inspired by both Forbidden Planet and the Horatio Hornblower novels by Forrester and by the film with Gregory Peck. That kind of, once he got that in his head and he watched all the episodes, he remarked that the two things he really was able to clue into is the relationship between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy and how that worked. And then how it keyed off of all the other relationships on the show for the bridge crew. And then understanding that it was a spacefaring adventure in the tradition of what Horatio Hornblower was. Once he keyed into that, that set the stage for how Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan would go. And that's really also the frame of mind he was in when he hastily rewrote the script. A lot of people don't know that part of the story either. But to get back to Leonard's advice to Shatner, Bill decided to have Bill decided that he needed help in putting his movie together and decided to have Harv Bennett as his producer, much to the chagrin of Leonard Nimoy. Because Nimoy was serious. He wasn't going to do the movie with that guy. Because they had gotten into it when he was directing. When he directed Star Trek III, his debut as a Star Trek film director, Bennett kind of did a few things behind the scenes that Leonard, he wasn't knowledgeable enough to get what was going on. By the time Leonard was able to direct Star Trek IV, he realized some of the tricks that Bennett had been using to get him to do certain things and pushed back against it. And that led to several confrontations behind the scenes to the point where Nimoy was done, as long as Harv Bennett was connected to everything. And everybody knew this, okay? The entire cast knew this. But notice, the only stories you hear is, well, Bill was a little full of himself on set, or Bill did this, or he didn't like me doing this, or, you know, you get from the quote-unquote rest of the cast outside of DeForest Kelley, you get all these stories about how Bill messed up today. But you don't get the rest of the stories about how the rest of everything else went. It's amazing how that happened.
Yeah.
But Leonard knew exactly what was going down. He did try to help a little bit. But I think the greatest piece of advice he gave Bill was not to trust Harv Bennett.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Harv Bennett was the biggest impediment to that movie. Because Harv Bennett had to do a full rewrite of Bill's original script in order to get it ready. Wink, wink. And that's happened to multiple filmmakers. Again, Richard Donner. A lot of people got to understand the biggest impediment to Richard Donner making Superman and not being able to make Superman 2 were his producers. That was it. They were the ones that got him fired even after the first movie came out and was a success. And they still removed him as the director.
That don't make no sense.
I mean, everybody has seen Superman the movie. You've enjoyed the first one. Well, that's the reason why the second one is the way that it is. It's a slightly different movie. Well, that wasn't the original plan. Originally, Superman 2 was meant to be part of the original story. It was really the second half of the major story that Mario Puzo had put together.
I was going to say, didn't I was under the impression that they almost shot both of them right on top of each other.
No, they did. They did.
Mm-hmm.
They started production on the first movie, and they went a few weeks on that. And then they started doing work to also work on Superman 2. And the reason why is because they didn't want to have to rebuild all the sets. Because if you remember, when the Phantom Zone villains at the beginning of the third act, or the middle of the film, when they visit the offices of the Daily Planet, they just about destroyed that entire set.
Yep.
So the idea was, let's go ahead and just film everything at the same time so that as we destroy sets, we don't have to worry about rebuilding anything.
Right.
Makes financial sense.
Yes.
And so technically, Star Trek, Superman 2 should have been out in 1979. And it wasn't. They waited until 1981, I think it was, to release the movie. Well, why did it take so long? Well, part of it is they didn't just kick Donner off the project, and he was getting close to being done with the second film. He still had a few more weeks of shooting. What they did was they went back and decided to do all the stuff that they tried to get Donner to do when he was making the first movie, because they felt they were right and he was wrong, even though everybody was liking his movie. So they wanted to add more comedy back in, and they did. They went back over scenes that he had already shot and hired back actors and stuff to film longer versions of scenes that were originally just short scenes. And then they added stuff to it, including the beginning with the Eiffel Tower. They added all of that. They added in a trip to France to film it at the Eiffel Tower. So they spent money that was not originally something that they had planned to do, because that entire sequence was not originally a part of the script. And so they spent money to refilm everything. So you're spending more money on top of everything else so you could redo visual effects, because they had a whole thing all set up. They were doing all this stuff, and they just went through and just started redoing stuff. In much the same way, ironically, that happened to the film Justice League.
I was fixing to say, you mean a studio messed with a director's vision? What? Back in the 70s? Say it isn't so. I think it's funny as hell when these critics today get mad about certain things that are going on, like it just started yesterday. This stuff's been going on for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And Wolverine 626, you're right. They should have allowed him to do it. I think now the of the two Sulkheims, one's still alive, the son, who admits that they made a mistake. They should have allowed Donner to do what he needed to do. Because, first of all, it would have been cheaper. Superman 2 would have made a whole lot more money if they had just stuck with what Donner had been doing and allowed Donner to finish out. Because he wasn't that far away from finishing. His story was clear, more concise. made more sense than the theatrical version of the movie, which had a different director. And when you see the Donner version of Superman 2, you begin to see what those of us have been saying for a long time. Superman 2 was really meant, even though it was a quote unquote separate movie, it was actually something kind of akin to what a situation that you kind of had with Godfather and Godfather 2, in so much as that you could have put both those films together to make one movie.
Right. Yeah. I always felt that way too.
Yeah.
But
not the theatrical version, because they changed too much. The scene in Paris completely derails all that.
Yeah.
Because it derails the explosion in space, which is really their version of covering up what Donner and company had originally, which is the actual beginning of Superman 2 has nothing to do with Paris.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with revisiting the last few moments of a scene in the first movie, where Superman has to grab the rocket going to New Jersey, Hackensack,
right,
and he takes it up into space. So that's actually the beginning of the movie. And he releases the rocket, he turns around and he notices the explosion in California and he flies off. Now in the film, we go with him to see what he does. In the second movie at the beginning, you stay there and you see what happens with the rocket.
Mm-hmm. And
it's that rocket's explosion that releases the Phantom Zone criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Mm-hmm. For those of you who have never seen the film, that's the actual beginning of the movie. And so there are a lot of scenes that if you're only used to the theatrical version of the film, that when you watch the Donner version, you'll notice there's a lot of scenes that are really short. Right. That's because that's the way they were written. They weren't meant to be longer. A lot of actors had he had a different purpose for a lot of that stuff. And again, I could continue to go on, but my advice to a lot of you who have never seen the Donner version, check it out and understand that even with what they were able to, even with what they had to do in order to get that movie together to make Donner's version, it's strong. That movie, in my opinion, is as good as the theatrical version. Just think how much better it would have been if Donner had been allowed to finish it.
Finish it, right? Yeah. All we have is what he had done up until they let him go, right?
Well, technically, the movie's done. Mm-hmm. They filled it in. The pivotal scene, and this is thinking ahead. The pivotal scene is based on a screen test that they had as they were finally trying to figure out who they were going to cast as Clark Kent and Lois Lane. And thank goodness that screen test that they had was of the actual scene from the second movie. A pivotal scene that he never got a chance to direct that was actually done as part of their screen test together. So they used that in the movie. And it makes more sense. It's a better scene than what they had in the theatrical version about how Lois finds out who Clark actually is.
Right.
You know, it again, the whole film, the way it's written, it makes the theatrical version look really contrived. And that's saying a lot. Yeah. So, but to get back to Leonard Nimoy, Leonard Simon Nimoy, again, is just, he's one of these people that has always been, I've always been fascinated with him, and no pun intended. I mean, I've always been fascinated with him. And growing up, when I was really young, to be able to see him on television, it always, there was a marked sense of quality with him on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, before Star Trek, he was in a lot of westerns, and he was like every other actor back then, trying to get his foot in the door in different things. And yeah, he was on a lot of different stuff, and he was really good at playing the bad guy in a lot of things. He was very talented. I know my fondest memory of him, Keith, is It was in the 70s. They had it might have been at the beginning of the 80s. They had one of these fans' choice top 10 things. It was a special marathon show where he hosted it, and they had taken a poll to see what everybody's favorite shows were, and he was telling a story about how he came up with this. And
Yes.
I'm sure you know it. You're a bigger Star Trek goon than I am. But that apparently is the letter K in the Jewish faith, and he was at a church
Religious
service.
Yeah.
And he was not. Apparently, there's a part of the service where the rabbis go up there and they bless the writings, scrolls, whatever it is.
And you're supposed to avert your eyes, close your
right,
eyes.
and they're not supposed to look. And he was a kid, and being a curious kid, he turned around and looked, and the rabbis were holding their hands like this over it, praying. And he thought that was really cool, And so that's where we got this from. That's one of my fondest memories of Leonard Nimoy. That and the fact that not only in Star Trek, but that guy was a great director. I mean, Three Men and a Baby stands up today. You can watch it today; it's still funny as hell. I mean, he did some of the best Star Trek stuff ever. So, yeah, man, I love the guy. I think he's awesome. He's definitely a different kind of cat than Bill is, and I've always, you hear these rumors that they didn't get along and stuff. I don't think that's the case. I think those guys got along just fine.
They got along fine. Look, they're people, and that's what I've often said. It's about being a person. Now, again, I'm not saying that everything that his co-stars, meaning everybody outside of DeForest Kelley and Leonard Nimoy, I'm not saying that the rest of those guys are lying. I'm just saying that their relationship with Shatner was mainly predicated on who he was, what his behavior was, and the thing that they really didn't like about him is they accused him of having this sort of attitude that he was the star. Well, here's the thing. It has been confirmed that he was the star.
Yeah, last time I checked, he was the star.
that what a lot of you out there who were born after 1970 need to realize is that, television shows, there were not that many ensemble television shows. That was more of a post-1970s idea. Prior to that, when it came to television, your star is the person whose name is first in the credits. That's
when you think
the
of
star.
Mission Impossible from back then, you think of Peter Graves. Okay,
that's
it. There was other guys on it. Matter of fact, this guy was on it at one point. So
yes,
yes,
and then you have your co-stars, and your people who came after that. Okay, well, according to their contracts, which again, everybody who follows my show knows what book I'm getting this from. Inside Star Trek, the real story. The book that details everything because they have all the memos and contracts, which is kind of helpful when you're telling these stories. Really, Shatner was the star. Leonard was the co-star. And that was it. Those two were the ones who were at the top. And that everybody else was considered to be people who could be replaced. Eventually, DeForest Kelley got bumped up in status. So the three of them were actors whose parts were considered essential. Everybody else outside of them were people that could have been replaced. That's the way that it worked.
Maybe not in our hearts, but yeah,
not in our hearts.
They could still tell the stories if Uhura disappeared, or if Sulu disappeared, or Chekhov. Yeah, we wouldn't want to see that, but
no.
Yeah, the Trinity is what they really needed to have to tell the stories, and I love how DeForest Kelley was elevated, and I thought it made for a better interaction between the three of them because DeForest Kelly was the guy that always called everybody on their horse shit, you know. So that's what I loved about him. So.
Well, again, it really is just being people on a set, and I get it. You know, everybody's had that job where it's not like on every job you don't get along with every single person you've ever worked with. Of course, you don't end up hating people that you work with.
No,
you know,
no.
But you don't get along with everybody that you work with, and so the thing is, and the reason why I give Shatner so much credit is that while certain co-stars may not have liked him, the crew loved Bill. You know, the one thing I learned when I was growing up, when I was studying how television and film worked, is a lot of the people who, you know, some actors have an attitude about them, whether it's film, television. Some actors can be a bit much. Others can be gracious. Others can be, I mean, all different stripes, all different types. The thing I learned that made me really become a fan of someone like Harrison Ford was the fact that, as an example of this, he always hung out with the crew while making the Star Wars films.
Well, he started with the crew, right?
That's right.
He was a carpenter that built sets and that kind of thing.
You can tell a lot about a person by who they choose to hang out with and how they act when they're around. He didn't think of himself as a star. He would often, if he was going to go get something to drink, he would turn to the nearest person, usually a crew member, and say, "Hey, can I get you something?" Or blah, blah. That's the way he was. Well, that's the way Bill was on set. He really got along with all of the set guys. Everybody that was not on camera and that was behind really the camera, he got along with them. You know? And so, again, I'm not saying that George or Nichelle or anyone else was lying. I'm just saying that it says a lot that even with the crew, they got stories about Bill and hanging out with him and having fun. And I didn't hear any stories about any of the other cast members hanging out with any of the crew. I'm just saying.
Right?
You know?
That tells you a lot right there, man.
So, but on top of that, you know, I mean, Boosh. Oh, we're doing the Epstein blast now.
Yeah. I'm gonna run get some coffee. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Anyway, Leonard was a really good actor who I loved watching, and I can't remember a time when I wasn't watching Leonard Nimoy or being interested in anything that he had done. And again, having grown up watching Star Trek reruns, you do get used to certain people's voices when you watch them a lot. And so I'd be able to pick out his voice on documentaries. He and Shatner did a lot of those NASA documentaries in the 1970s. So I could pick out their voices. I loved Nimoy when he did In Search Of. A really great show that really sparked my imagination for the things that are out there that might be a little unusual. And it's part of the reason why I became such a big fan of a show like The X-Files. I just think that overall, he could have been someone who he could have been a little more standoffish. He could have been a lot of different things. But he chose to be who he was. And he chose to try to have a life with his family that was of substance. He tried to be more of an artist outside of just being an actor. Outside of just attempting to find different ways of milking the Spock character and trying other things. I think it was one man play Vincent, which I got a chance to actually see. It had been, I think, filmed. And I got to say, that touched me to watch that. I did not know that one person could be so captivating and fill a stage with an incredible story, playing all the characters and being able to make the switches in between. Nimoy was amazing in that. And again, if you can find that and watch it, trust me, there was a range to him. I wish we could have seen more of.
Who's that?
And,
I'm sorry.
Leonard Nimoy's one-man show, Vincent, about Vincent Van Gogh, was amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Joe.
I haven't.
But if you can find a copy of it or see it on YouTube or something, spend a little time watching that, because there is a range there.
Yeah.
You know how you
did he do it on stage or?
Yeah, it was on stage.
Okay.
One man stage show.
I knew he had some stage work that he'd done. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be awesome.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yep.
It was amazing. And I remember when the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers came out. And
you're talking about the remake with him in it and Sutherland?
Yeah, the remake, the 1978 version. Mm-hmm. Much like the 1978 King Kong.
Yeah. Right?
But,
a lot of remakes around that time. Yep.
There's a lot more remakes. There are a lot more films that are actual remakes than one would think.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood has been making remakes
forever,
probably since the beginning.
I mean, they've done the Thing 3 times now. The Thing from Outer Space, and the Thing,
dude.
Yeah,
that movie with Lady Gaga, the one about the singer, that is the 4th remake of that movie.
Yeah.
A Star is Born. Yes, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
There are 5 versions of that movie.
Yeah, there's 5 versions of it, and again, it's kind of like people who play, the same role with different actors. Look at how many people have played Sherlock Holmes.
James Bond, the Doctor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just some people are able to do it and do it really well, and some people are good for the project that they're in. Mm-hmm. For Leonard Nimoy, though, he just found a way to make it work, and
that guy was super talented. That's all there is to it. I mean, I was discussing last night with Martin. I'm a Star Trek fan, but I'm more an original series. This is my guy, him and Shatner and DeForest Kelley. Me and my wife tried to revisit Next Generation recently, and I'm just like, man, it's Star Trek, but it's not my guys, man. I just can't get into it. We gave up before we even got to the 10th episode, but. I do remember some Next Generation, and it's because of this guy. I remember when the Undiscovered Country came out. They did a tie-in on Next Generation before the movie came out. I think wasn't a 2-part story where he was trying to broker something between the Romulans and the Remans.
Yeah. It was called Unification Parts 1 and Part 2.
Right, and he mentioned during it that he had put somebody else's butt on the line once, and he wasn't going to do that again. Mm-hmm. He was going to do it all himself. Mm-hmm. That was the main message of the story. And I thought that was a great 2-parter that Next Generation put on at that time. And, I thought it was a neat way to sell the movie they were about to put out, because at that time we'd already had Star Trek 5 and a lot of people were turned off by it. They just didn't think it was that great. So they thought that series was spent, and then we got Star Trek 6, which in my opinion is the second best Star Trek movie ever made. So that's just my humble opinion.
It's a good movie,
and I concur.
Yep.
I am absolutely in agreement with your list and the same precise order.
Yeah, I was telling him last night, Keith, we were having this conversation because he was telling me what you were doing today. And my favorite is Wrath of Khan. I mean, it's hard not to argue that's the best one ever. Yeah. Number 2 for me is The Undiscovered Country. And
Oh, yeah.
even though I'm not a big fan of the series itself, because I'm just not into Jean-Luc Picard, but First Contact is number 3 on my list. That is one of the, I mean, I'll take that above the rest of the original series guys shows, you know?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic story. And one of the things I loved about it was I got to see what I always wanted to see, the entire fleet in action in a war. That opening scene against the Borg cube is one of the coolest things ever put on film, if you ask me. I always wanted to see something like that, and we got to see it in that movie.
But that's the great thing about it. You know, I love First Contact. To me, it's the best of all the Next Generation films.
Yeah.
Although, I will argue, and I will die on this hill, one of the best looking Star Trek films of all time. Best looking Star Trek films
Insurrection
of all time is Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
The way that they shot that movie makes it my second favorite as far as the look and cinematography. I mean, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, in my opinion, is the best looking Star Trek film.
Yeah.
But Star Trek Generations is probably is a close second as far as look, because the way they shoot the Enterprise, especially the interiors of that ship for the movie version, if they had done that on the television series, that show would have gone another 7 seasons. Look at the way that they had put that the entire thing. Well, noticing that the crew, it's only been a few months since the final episode on TV. And so you notice things like how they've changed up what the crew wears. They're wearing now the Deep Space Nine uniforms. They are they have a whole new look to the badges that they're wearing, and you're introduced to quote unquote new sets, which really are meant to be sets they had that they never got around to on the show, like stellar cartography and I love that entire film. I mean, it's a fun movie, but really, First Contact is my favorite of theirs, and I agree with you. The scene with the Borg cube is amazing to see.
It is so great.
It is. It's just, but it also shows you why the Borg, were a force to be dealt with. To be reckoned with.
I was telling Martin last night that even though I'm not going to revisit the entire series, I thought about looking up online. I'm sure there's a list somewhere of all the Borg episodes, and I've actually thought about cutting that part out and watching just that part, because I love that bunch of guys right there. I think it's awesome.
Is the first one that you need, because that's
Which
the
one?
beginning.
Who? Okay, gotcha.
Because that's where the Borg gets introduced for the first time. I think that again, it's just good Star Trek. But Star Trek First Contact is also part of a really, Wolverine 66, definitely assimilate this.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Let's hold on. I need to jump in here to the chat, because Wolverine 66 said, "Did you read that big variety puff piece for Kurtzman Trek? A young version of the Enterprise C captain is in section 31. Yeah. Look, all I know is that's just a film. Look, I love Michelle Yeoh. Okay? But I'm out.
Yeah. Are they ever going to release that thing, first of all?
It will be released. But I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Kurtzman, look, he should be just glad I'm not his boss. I would have fired him years ago. He's killing the brand, and he's not making any money.
I gave it several chances, Keith. Several chances. The last one I gave it was Strange New Worlds, because I like Anson Mount as Pike. He's probably the best thing that happened during Discovery, But when they turned the friggin' Gorn into Predator/aliens, and then they had Kirk having a love affair with the friggin' granddaughter of Khan Noonien Singh, I was like, you guys are just getting Bizarro World with this shit.
It's done on purpose.
Yeah.
Because because the showrunner for Strange New Worlds let it be known that since they are the ones in charge of Star Trek, that whenever they make anything that contradicts even the original series, that what they're doing supersedes that because they are fixing Star Trek.
Like it needed to be fixed. I don't know if you guys understand this, but you have a job because there was nothing wrong with it. Everybody loves it.
So that tells you, and again, this is the reason why. This is the reason why the people running CBS need to understand it's you guys were well within your rights to stick with Kurtzman. Nobody really could tell you how to do your business, but here's the thing: you're losing money. You've already lost a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is more of a self pain infliction thing on you guys because a lot of us have long since left, and we're just watching as you continue to basically either just lie and say, "Oh, we've never been bigger," which is not true.
It is not true.
And or saying, "Well, we just keep getting attacked by all these hate," which isn't as true as you would lead us to believe because nobody cares. Nobody cares.
No. And they don't pay attention to history at all. I mean, every comic book convention that you go to now, it's because of syndicated television bringing back a dead franchise called Star Trek. I mean, me and my brother used to run home in the mid-'70s to be home for 3:00 to see Captain Kirk kick some butt. We had to be there every day when we got off of school, you know? And my dad tells me that I loved it when I was a kid. But I don't remember it. I was like, when it originally hit the airwaves, I think I was like 1 or 2. Wasn't it 66 to 68? I think that it was on
66 and officially canceled in 69.
Right. So at that time we didn't have conventions like this and stuff, but there was this huge fan base that popped up overnight when they started syndicating it.
Yeah.
And people loved that show. And it was, some might argue it was bigger than anything on network television at the time. And it was in syndication. It was on in the afternoon, you know?
And when they reconfigured the numbers, when they did the whole new way of calculating viewership, because they had a different way of calculating viewership prior to 1969, 1970. Mm-hmm. Had that new system been used,
they would have never canceled it.
They never would have canceled it. So, again, but it worked out. It worked out, you know.
Yeah, because of fans, guys that love the show. They started getting together, and it turned into cons, and that started a pattern for fan-made shows like the San Diego Comic-Con and things like that. But it all started with Star Trek, folks. Every one of these conventions, you can thank Star Trek for that.
Yep.
And that fan base. Yep.
Absolutely. That fan base was the prototypical fan base, pretty much for every fan base that came after.
So these guys that are saying they're fixing Star Trek, it wasn't broken.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
They don't care.
Oh,
they
so
really don't
many
care.
names.
And let me answer a question that I was asked in chat. It was
let me get it. Oh, I lost it. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, who's worse, Bennett or Kurtzman? You know what? Here's the thing. Bennett did what he did because he thought he was the one that should have been the successor to the legacy of Star Trek. In his mind, he was the natural person to take over Star Trek and lead it into the 21st century. And his original idea was, I'm going to go ahead and make a Star Trek movie about these characters, but when they were in the academy together. Now, as a Star Trek fan, one of the things that you actually understand is that Roddenberry was basically basing a lot of what you saw in Starfleet from the military.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's one of the things I love about the show. It's basically the Navy in space.
That's
what
right.
it is.
So
Yeah.
how often are you able to serve with people that you actually literally went to school with?
Not very often. Not very often at all.
His whole thing was that they all met in the academy together. Everybody met in the academy, and then they all just went on the Enterprise and had adventures. And a lot of people like myself, even back then, saying that's got to be the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Right.
I mean, it's like, look, I don't even need to hear the rest of your pitch. That's just a dumb idea.
It is.
You know, and his whole thing was, no. I want the original actors in it. We're going to shoot them sitting around the table telling these stories about when they were at the academy together. And even hearing that, I'm like, that's still dumb. I've lost IQ points just listening to that, you know?
Right.
Well, they had even dumber ideas, and they put it on big screen. For example, a belt war transporter that can take you to another planet.
Oh,
yeah.
God, yeah.
Well, here, look. I know people get surprised when I say this. The 2009 Star Trek film gets a pass from me because it's an alternate timeline.
Yeah, it's the Kelvin timeline. I'm with that.
Not even that does not justify the stupidness of that movie.
No. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Martin. But
nobody's defending Into Darkness, man. Trust me, nobody's defending.
I'm just saying.
None of them.
I give it.
Let's build this starship here on Earth with gravity.
I think that's the only part. That's one of the few things that me and my other twin brother Robert Meyer Burnett disagree with. I don't mind that because again, it's alternate timeline, meaning they can get as funky and as messed up and as whatever because it's an alternate timeline. Once you get a
stupid timeline.
Okay,
we get it. It's stupid, but I'm with Keith on this. I can enjoy the first movie because it's got some really good Pike's depiction and it's fantastic. I love that. You know,
but also the whole birth of Captain Kirk, it's automatically deviates because of what you learn on the original series. If you've watched all 79 episodes and you pay attention to all of those plot lines or loose little stories that are told about Captain Kirk, especially, you understand what his life story is prior to the first episode of Star Trek.
Right.
You get a lot of the highlights. And so automatically that 2009 movie from the very beginning is so different than what you
I personally love the opening scene of that one where he gets in the middle of a firefight on the edge of space, man. I think that is I love the opening of it. I thought it was great.
Read that one.
Yeah. I get it. No, I get it. I don't mind it because it's an alternate timeline, meaning you can get away with all kinds of things in an alternate timeline. Look. Here's another little thing. Kirk himself on the original series said, he never really met Pike. Now in the alternate timeline, Pike's like his mentor.
It's
a whole different thing. Yeah. I mean, again, it's wacky and it's fine because
there's good stuff there, like the Kobayashi Maru thing. Yeah. That was great.
There was only two good things in that movie. Only two.
Oh man, okay.
The Kobayashi Maru. The introduction to Bones. Well,
yes, that is awesome.
Well,
Carl Urban knocked that shit out.
Every line that Carl Urban said was awesome. And that's it. The rest, the rest is dumb, stupid.
I hear you, man.
The movie's dumb.
I'm sorry, I got to side with Keith. I can enjoy that movie as a single one-shot. Hey, what if episode of Star Trek? That's what I look at it as.
Now let me get you, Joe. Do you like Injustice and Injustice 2?
Yes.
They occur in an alternate timeline, right?
Yes, absolutely. Superman would never do the shit he does in that.
Yes, you've seen characters being completely different from what they are.
Yes.
Known as, right?
Yes.
Now, are those stories well written or badly written?
They're well written. I think they're very well written. You know how I feel about that. I've played Injustice 2
I'm
so many
setting you
times, it's
up.
not even funny. Yeah,
Because, dude, the fact that we're talking about a different timeline, it doesn't mean that that bad writing is allowed.
right. I
And
got
that's
you.
my
Yeah,
point.
I mean,
Again,
a lot of it is random roll of the dice shit. I understand that, but as a one-off, what if scenario type thing, kind of like what you said, Injustice 2 and Injustice, I can enjoy it. I don't want to see another one. Enter Darkness is I thought I'd never see anything worse than part 5. And to answer the previous question about the producer from Star Trek 5 and friggin' Kurtzman, I gotta say Kurtzman's the worst, because at least in Star Trek 5 we got one of the most iconic lines ever mentioned in a Star Trek movie. What does God need with a starship, right? I mean, how many times have you heard that? As bad as that movie is, it's got its moments. So I have to say Kurtzman's the worst. But yeah, I'm with him on Star Trek 09. I can enjoy it. As a one-off.
That's my whole thing. I enjoy all the actors and how much fun they're having in that movie. And again, it looks fun, but look, you
got to admit the kid that played Nimoy's part was excellent. He did a fantastic job.
Everybody's having a good time, and you can tell JJ's playing
except the audience.
Part of the audience liked it, or they wouldn't have made a sequel, Martin.
Keep stabbing.
That's it.
Look, I'm not saying I'm not a big rah fan of what Kurtzman does, although I have to agree. I agree that with Wolverine, that I would still, if I had to choose between JJ Trek and Kurtzman Trek, I'd take JJ Trek, because at least with JJ Trek, none of it is really replacing what you've done with everything else. It's an alternate timeline, meaning you can do whatever you want, and there are no consequences, because these characters are not these characters.
That's it.
That's my thing. Kurtzman
the
Trek,
opening
though,
scene of it establishes, hey, this is a different timeline. Things are playing out different.
That's right. And again, it's I mean, all of the coincidental stuff. If you've watched all 79 episodes, you realize that first of all, Kirk worked his way up to becoming captain. He wasn't just given the captaincy.
Yes.
He worked his way up. He was I think he was the
son of a
first
Starfleet commander, wasn't he?
No. His father was in, but I mean, what I was gonna say is he was the He was the first officer of the Hood,
Well,
which is one of the major.
That's an exo.
Yep.
Yeah, exo. But he was he was first. That set up a story that they used during the show. You don't have that happen in 09. There's nothing like everything is streamlined. And again, my biggest complaint is, where's Gerry? Where's Gerry? You managed to do Starfleet Academy. Where's Gerry?
Different timeline. Kirk entered the academy 3 years later.
And that's the thing. If you're not going to have Gerry in it, and you're not going to tell the story of how Kirk used to be bullied a lot in Starfleet Academy.
Yes, you need Gerry and Finnegan.
Yeah, and you're missing a lot of stuff. And that isn't the only thing. I mean, Spock, there's a few stories in the 79 episodes even covering Spock's time at the Academy. He met a lot of people. He did have people that knew him.
Yeah.
And so my thing is, you can't have it to where you magically meet all of your shipmates at one time and you all are on the same ship and it's just magic. No, it to me, I look at it as just a jokey timeline.
No, you can because Uhura tells Spock who to put in the ship. Fuck
right? Yeah. I'm gonna use my feminine manipulation to make sure I get what I want out of you, pal.
Yeah, but you know what? If I weren't married and she was telling me that, I'd
Come on, man.
it.
Yeah, I'd listen to it. You know that.
Because she looks good.
Do you guys do the comic book ad at the 1 hour mark on this show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's that time.
And
It's that
there we
time.
go. Indeed. Let me find that beautiful, beautiful ad.
That
And here
beautiful
we
comic
go.
book footage.
Like Zoe Saldana.
Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc., the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
Well.
Well, before we begin,
Okay.
can we get a look at the shirt you're wearing?
Me?
Who?
No, Keith. I
Okay.
think it's that the Hall of Justice, right?
Oh, good eye. Yes, it's the Hall of Justice.
Let's see.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
nice.
baby.
That's nice. That's the front of it from the animated series, right? Yeah. That's tough.
This is the
Very
shirt
cool.
that I was originally hoping to buy when I went to Cincinnati to visit the Hall of Justice itself. And it turns out they got rid of all that stuff, although something tells me that that could be changing with what we learned about the filming schedule for the movie Superman being directed by James Gunn. And it's looking like they're going to be shooting scenes in Ohio. They will be shooting scenes in Cleveland and in Cincinnati. And it's looking like they're going to go to the train station and use that as the Hall of Justice. Now, the rumor that I heard, and this is just a rumor, is this. It's looking more and more like they've established already in the movie Black Adam. So some of that stuff will be transferred over to this Gunverse, basically. That the
Except for
Justice,
Dwayne Johnson.
yeah, except for Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
That the Justice Society exists. Okay? So the rumor that I heard is that the Hall of Justice will be the home and headquarters of the Justice Society, not the Justice League. So that later on, when they do have the Justice League, that the Justice League will get the satellite, like in the comics from the 1970s and the 80s.
Right. The
And
Watchtower. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, that the Justice Society, which is the original super team for all of comics, because they were the first comic book super team, they have the Hall of Justice.
Okay.
So that's how that's going to work out. And that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
But, yeah, I'm good eye, Martin. But, yeah, I just felt like wearing it today, and I'll probably wear it a lot more. Especially, I'm thinking about wearing this to the opening of the movie when it opens, because, again, I got to represent being from Ohio originally, and having visited the Cincinnati train station there. which again, I tell people all the time. There's lots of different places that you can visit in this country that have comic tie-ins, and I will challenge people to just go find those places. Cincinnati being one of them, Cleveland being the other, which is the actual real home of Superman, because that's where he was born.
Okay.
The character of Superman was born in Cleveland. And also, while you're there, go to Athens, Ohio, which if I remember, is in the southwestern part of the state. And that's the city that is the inspiration for Central City, which is the home of the Flash.
Right.
So Ohio has three major contributions to DC Comics. And comic book history and comic book films in totality, because Cleveland was actually the place that they used for the original Avengers film. Parts of Cleveland were used for the first Avengers movie. And then north of Cleveland, there is a campus there that's used for NASA. And that's at the beginning of the movie when you see the SHIELD helicopter land and Nick Fury gets out and he goes to visit the Tesseract. That's actually just north of Cleveland.
Wow.
And Germany, where Loki has everybody kneel to him in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And the party that he disrupts to take out that guy's eye.
Right.
That party takes place in the City Hall of Cleveland. And then outside where he makes everybody kneel, that's downtown Cleveland. So
pretty cool.
It should be funny being Cleveland watching that movie. Wait a minute.
Well, I think they had a lot to look at when they were watching The Winter Soldier, because that's also filmed in Cleveland, because the directors, the Russo brothers, are from Cleveland.
Wow.
So they used Cleveland for a good portion of that movie, especially the fight scene on the highway overpass, where
that to this day is my favorite Marvel movie.
That is, it's a kick butt movie.
It is the best,
and it's the Russos.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I will
they need
say
to throw a boatload of money at those guys and get them back in it.
Not just the Russos; they need the writers back too. Yeah. They should just throw a boatload of money and just get them back. And if they're not willing to, if Superman goes right for James Gunn, I see him throwing a boatload of money at the Russos to come work with him at DC.
Yeah, why reinvent the wheel, man? Go with what's worked in the past. I mean, it's not hard.
Thank you, Bush. And you know what? She's never done that. Hasn't done that yet. So let's keep that on the down low, because we don't want to give ideas.
I knew me and Bush agreed on something. You're right. Winter Soldier is a cut above. The thing I love about the Winter Soldier is the subject matter, the dangers of the surveillance state, and all that stuff. I really dug the entire vision of that movie. I really did. I thought it was great.
Wait, let me address this. Bush, we are all the wrong price collectible away to being evicted.
Right? Yeah. No shit. Well, I'll be on the street.
I have a wife that hasn't chosen to look inside the room that I've set aside for a lot of stuff. So if she were to take a really good look in there, I'd probably be sleeping on the non-existent couch that now it's not there anymore.
I was smart. I converted my wife to nerdhood. She has an entire Walking Dead Hall of Fame over here. Matter of fact, she's fixing to add, I think in August, we've got the governor is coming to our local con. So she's going to add him to the wall.
John took a shortcut.
Yeah.
He found himself a nerdy girl.
There you go.
You know, I got a nerdy girl too, but she's also very good at keeping track of things. Not too much gets past her. So, and because she's a nerd, she goes, I've never seen that before. What's
Right.
that?
What is that? Where'd
Oh,
that come from?
honey, no. This
No.
is what we got at this other place. What other place, dear? What other place are you thinking of? Because I have a good memory for all the places that we picked stuff up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm not one of those guys that can get away with that.
I can't get away with it either. I mean, the nature of our relationship, we have a joint account, so yeah, I can't spend money and her not know about it. That's all there's to it. So, yeah.
Well, look, while we were showing the ad for Vindicated, which again, if you've yet to jump on board with that, I really recommend that you do that. I found a brand new article.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Now, I've never heard of these guys before, but I thought you guys would appreciate the subject matter.
Okay.
Paramount beams aboard Steve Yaki to write fourth and final Star Trek movie produced by J.J. Abrams.
What? I thought they were done.
Yeah, in fact, hold on.
I mean, there were rumors about them bringing everybody on board from, all the different series and stuff. And
here we go.
And...
I used that article to jump into the real article from Variety. Okay.
Let's see it. Excuse me.
Uh-oh. So Variety has, let's see, Star Trek 4 screenwriter Steve Yaki. Yeah, that was published, I think, yesterday. So, but basically, it looks like they're going to attempt to do something else. And
well, wasn't the rumor that they were going to bring Hemsworth and
no, Hemsworth doesn't want to go back.
Right, but that was the rumor originally. They were going to try and bring a whole bunch of different people into one that had something to do with time travel and shit. I think something like that.
So
and
Kills sees that.
Yeah, right.
Well, here, let me read this from Variety. Adam B. Very. This is from March 27th, 8:15 a.m. Steve Yaki, creator of the Max series The Flight Attendant, is joining Starfleet as the new screenwriter for Star Trek 4. Story details remain under a powerful cloaking device, but Paramount Pictures and Bad Robot still intend the project to be the final chapter for the cast that rebooted the franchise in movie theaters with 2009 Star Trek, including Chris Pine as Captain James T. Kirk, Zachary Quanto from Pittsburgh as Commander Spock, Zoe Saldana, hotness, as Lieutenant Nyota Uhura, Carl Laban as Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy, John Cho as Lieutenant Hikaru Sulu, and Simon Pegg as Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott. Mm-hmm. Variety first reported the news in its cover story on the future of Star Trek franchises. Bringing the cast back following 2016's Star Trek Beyond has proven trickier for the studio than finding an altruistic Ferengi. At least 3 previous attempts fell apart for various reasons, most recently with director Matt Shankman, WandaVision, and screenwriters Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson DeWitt. She wrote Captain Marvel.
It's just stacking on failure. What the hell, man?
Let's see. That's okay. That the studio had slated to open in late 2023 when Shankman left the film in 2022 to direct the Fantastic Four for Marvel Studios. However, Paramount pulled it from its slate and sent it back to Space Dock. Yaki's involvement is the most promising sign, of forward momentum the project has had since. The playwright started his TV writing career on the MTV series Awkward and Scream, before joining the writing staff of Supernatural for 4 seasons. His latest series, the Sandman universe adaptation Dead Boy Detectives, will premiere on Netflix in April. Paramount is also developing a separate Star Trek project with writer Seth Green-Smith, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and directed by Toby Hayes, Black Mirror, U.S. Callister, that would feature a new cast and a story meant as a kind of origin story for the franchise. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading about something that's actually set during Kurtzman Trek as a movie. A project with screenwriter Kalinda Vasquez, Fear the Walking Dead, first announced in 2021, also remains in development. Okay, what they're referring to is an idea that Kurtzman has of doing a movie about the origin of Starfleet. Yeah.
I think they've got that already. It's called Star Trek Enterprise, starring Scott Bakula. I'm pretty sure it's something like that.
No. And again, as much as they like that show, they're going to try to look. Their whole thing is about creating as much Star Trek content as they can get away with before somebody buys the rights.
Well, to put it in perspective of today's story, you hear that thump, 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 thump sound? That's Leonard Nimoy spinning in his grave like a pull-up blind. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, jeez.
Yikes, man. Please, just put it down. Just put it down.
Dude, just read this.
Yeah, exactly. There it is. Yeah. Guy from a different from a different time hates the Federation. Guy from a different time hates the Federation. Wait for it. Hates the Federation. Too funny, man. Damn, Bush. That's good.
Oh,
and they did make Sulu gay in the fucking Kurtzman verse, no doubt.
Yeah.
That was them being meta, I think, is what that was. You know.
And here's my best part of that story. Guess who was the one that stood up to not be a fan of doing that?
Probably
George Takei
himself.
That's right.
Yeah, probably.
George Takei said, "Oh no!
Oh
I
my!
Don't like that at all. That does not compute. I don't like that at all."
Yeah.
And I felt he was correct because the character wasn't originally written that way. So,
got to give him credit. Yeah, got to give him credit. He's standing up.
Well,
for the
it's the time.
Right?
It's the timeline effect.
All right, there you go. It's a changed timeline. Anything can happen.
Well, again, I'm not going to apologize for it. I do like 2009. Is it the best movie ever made? No. But it to me, you can do anything you want because now you are released from having to follow anything that they've done by doing things that go against what the original 79 episodes said.
I mean, if you want to be credible, all you have to do is stick to things pre that event, right? You know, the Federation, all that good stuff. But
you know, if a Romulan ship appears and destroy a Federation ship that I do not know about, hey, I may become gay. The fuck?
Oh
my God!
You gotta warn somebody before you get funny like that.
Right? Jeez, man, that's too good.
Oh, wow. Bye, Penny and Tim Tug. Hey, Tim, how's it going, big man?
But by the way, now that we're talking about movies that are not the best movies ever made, I think it's time for your review.
Okay. Let's see. My review of Ghostbusters.
Oh, wow, really? Okay. I haven't seen it. Interesting.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will try to.
No. Go ahead. I checked out of Ghostbusters after the second movie back in the 80s. Okay. I have been out of it for a long time. I love the original, but yeah, it's beating a dead horse at this point, if you ask me. From what I understand, I'd be better served watching the Saturday morning cartoon and playing the Xbox 360 game than anything else they've put out since the first one. So, yeah.
Well, you know, look, let me just say this. I can be accused of not being the right audience for this movie because I was not a fan of the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I was never a fan. First of all, when Ghostbusters came out in 1984, you know, I was only just I was my senior year of high school. So I
was already in the army when that movie came out. I didn't know you were younger than me, man.
I was senior year of high school, and we're
not far apart. I graduated the year before when Return of the Jedi came out. Yeah,
that would have been a year before
83.
Yeah, that was actually the year of my first convention. The very first convention I ever went to was 1983.
Yeah,
but
would you say that was a life-changing event?
Oh, come on, he's still talking about it to this day, isn't he?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So you try to get that first high back. You know, you try to chase that first high. Anyway, I was definitely someone who that cartoon series was not aimed at. So I've heard about the episodes, and I did occasionally check out an episode or two. I didn't think that much of it. Didn't hate it, just didn't think that much of it. And I was definitely against having the Spud become a cast member because, you know, it was a good gimmick, but to have a ghost constantly hang out and be a character was kind of antithetical to what the purpose of the Ghostbusters were.
Yeah, right. I'm supposed to be putting that guy in a containment tank.
Yeah,
No, here's the thing: Slimer was a collaborator.
Oh man.
I just think that, you know, and again, that shows you, you know, I don't even use the name that they came up with him because the reality is that when the film was being made, they had no name for him, so they called him the Spud. So that's what I've always called him. And so, you know, if I'm not thinking about it and I start talking about Ghostbusters, I call him the Spud. But again, I know that there's a lot of you out there who did like the cartoon series, who did get into the episodes and how they put things. And so a lot of what they had talked about doing for this movie got a lot of you out there excited, and that's great. I'm happy for you if that did something for you. For me, a lot of that was lost on me. As far as I'm concerned, there's Ghostbusters, there's Ghostbusters 2, and then there's Ghostbusters Afterlife. Mm-hmm. And that's the way that goes.
Yeah.
You can even skip Ghostbusters too. You can.
Yeah,
you can
that's my thing. I didn't care.
The one and Afterlife.
I told you what checked me out of it. Ghostbusters 2 is whatever.
Yeah, and that is a lot closer to being like the animated series. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there that I just did not care for. You know, and again, I have the same reasons. I have the same thought about that movie that Bill Murray does. That movie was just not that good. And Bill Murray completely checked out after that movie. Now, Amy Pascal, let me just get to her before I get to the review of the movie.
Okay.
Amy Pascal is a name that a lot of people should remember because it was she who stopped all of us from getting Ghostbusters 3 with the entire cast.
Mm-hmm.
That movie was ready to go. Aykroyd had a script. They had everybody on board ready to go. And she came along running Sony at the time and said, yeah, I don't think so. I want an all-female Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And we see how well that went over.
Yeah. And thus denying us at least getting a third movie with the entire original cast in it.
Yeah, before they became relics, right?
And before one passed away.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as far as I'm concerned, Amy Pascal can sit and spin. Now, Ghostbusters Afterlife, I had a lot of fun watching.
Yes,
for me,
fun.
Yeah,
I'm not radically opposed. I just haven't found the time to watch it yet. That's all.
it's a good movie, and I think some of it had to do with the fact that you know, I'm a dad, and if I really did feel for that part of the story about Egon and his daughter and you know the divide there. You know, do you try to save the world, or you know, do you try to spend time with your family? And I'm not saying I agree with Egon's decision, but I understand why he did what he did. And to have that entire film, to have all of these new actors be endearing, and what it took to actually get that movie made, I enjoyed that entire film. And again, it's Paul Rudd being Paul Rudd. How
Dude,
can you not like
nothing
Paul
better.
Rudd?
Nothing better. I'm a huge Paul Rudd fan. Yes, I dig him.
And so Paul Rudd, you know, having him be who he was in that film, and be as excited as any of the kids, that helped to make the film for me. I liked everybody in the movie, as I said before. Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, who, again, is beyond talented as a young actress. I've enjoyed her performances in various films.
Is she the granddaughter?
Yes.
Okay.
Very believable granddaughter.
I was going to say, you look
Spengler.
at her, you can tell that's Egon's bloodline right there.
Well, that's the power of a little bit of makeup and a wig, because she's actually blonde in real life.
Well, I was talking about her personality.
Yeah. The way they have her acting, and the fact that I was reminded that it was Egon who actually attacked Walter Peck. You know,
Was.
And
He had
had enough, you know. And so his granddaughter has that same thing going on, you know, which I really enjoy. But the entire cast was fun. The story was fun. If you're a fan of the original Ghostbusters, this is a nice sort of point to jump back in. If for anything else, just one final adventure and just have some fun. And so Ghostbusters Afterlife, that's the way I saw it. That's the way I viewed it. And then I find out they're going to do a sequel.
Yeah.
They're really going to go through with this. Fine. I'm ready to go. What took me out of it a little bit was the fact that they were going to try to have this relate or add in the stuff from the animated series. That's a big downside for me, because again, I was not a fan of the animated series. I can't go down that road with a lot of that stuff, you know. But I will say this, as I've said before, I can understand if that's really your jam, enjoy it, okay. But
we don't want to poo-poo anybody on what they like. No doubt.
That's right. That's it's not my place to try to harsh somebody else's mellow. Just enjoy it. But let me just say this. Having watched Frozen Empire, my problem isn't the characters. My problem is that the script itself, I would not be surprised if there was enough material left on the cutting room floor to make a whole
Yes,
movie.
there are one or two scenes in which you can sense there was something here, and once, and there isn't no more.
And it was pulled out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get the sense that there is a lot more story to this. But I also didn't like how, with the film that they actually put out there, the film that's actually in theaters that I paid to go see, I didn't really agree with a lot of the story objectives that they had. Look, I have heard everybody's reasoning on both sides of that. I really personally don't care either way about that. You know, if Phoebe is or isn't, don't care about it. What I do care about is the fact that it just seemed like they didn't know what to do with a lot of these characters. And
Yeah.
here I thought after the first film, after Afterlife, I thought they had a pretty good idea. And it just seemed like somehow between the release of that film and making this movie, they kind of lost focus.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you know what you're describing. What I'm hearing, I'm hearing Batman versus Superman. I'm hearing the sequel to Superman, right, to Man of Steel, and they throw a bunch of shit in it. Too much stuff thrown in, and totally dilute what they were shooting for. Right.
Well,
in my opinion, Joe, there were aspects in which they added unnecessary things.
Yeah.
And there were parts in which they left out necessary things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also they did things like, for instance, in
God
the film.
damn, that is a beautiful background.
Yeah, it is.
In the film, you find out that Podcast, who was introduced in Afterlife, has to come up with this reason to be in New York. And my whole thing after seeing the entire movie is why? If you're going to make up a reason, they could have at least had something like, you know, I'm sure his parents know that he likes to do this paranormal podcast. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you just have something to where he got it like an internship?
Well, wait a minute. What are you talking about here?
The newest
Afterlife. I mean, newest, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Frozen Empire.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had so many problems with that movie. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
There's so many problems with that film.
You could have had it to where if Winston has already put money towards this whole Ghostbusters sort of science thing to study ghosts, why couldn't his organization have just sent a letter to his parents saying that he won this scholarship for the summer to come study paranormal stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a rather simple thing to add into the story. On top of that, you've got Ray being a little lost a little bit, not really knowing how to, you know, you have the whole Patton Oswalt thing. That,
oh my God, I fucking hate that guy. He's a terrible actor.
But there's no reason to have his character in there because by going after
Ray should have known that.
Yes, that's what I was getting around to saying. Research. The Ghostbusters research team was Egon and Ray. Mainly Ray, because Ray had an interest. You had already established that at the end of Ghostbusters.
Egon was the tech guy.
Yeah, Egon was the tech guy. Ray was the research guy.
One so drill hole in his head. That guy.
With Podcast, you've already established that Podcast has the same kind of like, he's excited by the paranormal. He's hanging out with Ray. Why couldn't you have had the movie be about how Podcast and Ray are researching all of this stuff and learning how to, you know, put stuff together? If you're really
the problem, Keith. Can I just add this in there?
Yeah.
I can't stay long. I just wanted to pop in and say hi and also remind people I'll be on with Scribe like this afternoon, and Anima's going to put the link in the chat because I'll be doing that at 3:00 Central Time, interviewing me about my book and stuff. But there are too many hands on the script.
Mm-hmm.
They had a person on there untested working on that script, the director. It should have been just Ivan's boy.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody, Dan Aykroyd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody else. And I can tell where some of the stuff that came in there. Like I got into a little debate with Tom. I said, the girl does lean. And he goes, no, she doesn't lean. I said, yes, she does. She moves. And her mouth does a weird thing right before she moves. The 15-year-old daughter, I forget her name, Phoebe, I think it is.
Yeah, Phoebe. Yeah.
She, the moment she leans, it cuts to a different angle real quick. She's not moving anymore. And then the girl fades away. And I'm like, it was there. The move is there. And I've got the video clip in our video storage right here in the channel just to show it. It's there. And Anima says, well, it looks more like she's moving left. I said, she's moving left and forward. People don't move straight forward. They lean to whatever leg they're going to. And that's what was going on there. She was leaning. And I could give a shit if she grows up to be gay, but she's 15 fucking years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it had no fucking place in Ghostbusters. What's it got to do with the story? What's it got to do with ghosts? That stupid ghost, too, annoyed me in the writing. That ghost was so fucking pointless.
Yes.
What is she missing? She lost her fucking grandfather. And she's lacking a father in her life because Rudd's not quite her dad yet. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you have a competition now, a ghost that appears like a father, right? A father figure who is brought in right at that moment after she gets, shit canned, not allowed to go out on runs anymore. She sees a fatherly figure that she's missing in her life. And then you have a story. And then Paul Rudd's having to come forward and be more of a dad because he sees what's happening with her. Bad writing. It's just bad.
You guys are just, from what I'm hearing, I did the right thing staying home. So,
Well, look, I still fucking enjoyed it because Bill Murray's in 3 whopping big scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was so miffed at that. It's like they kind of gave us a promise we were going to get more Ghostbusters. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys with proton packs in this movie. How many? About 8 people? Something like that?
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's fan service. Look, I enjoyed every scene that Bill Murray's in. He knocked it out. Every single scene. Every word he said was perfect.
Paul Dark and Horny was like a great line. But they spoiled it in the fucking trailer.
They did. They put it in the trailer. Yeah.
Why would you do that? He's got 3 fucking lines in the movie. Really?
They should have ended the trailer with him walking in the door. That's how they should have done that in the trailer. But
look, I'm going to go. Yep. I'm going to go. I don't want to interrupt any further. But I'll be on later with Scribe Light. I'm looking forward to hanging out with him. He's been on our show. Now it's my turn to go on his show.
What are you doing Monday before you get out of here?
Bagaga?
A military Monday. What are you doing?
It's all
this coming Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do Shogun.
Okay, cool.
The original series.
Cool. Richard Chamberlain.
From 1980.
That's right. Martin told me that last night.
And don't forget tonight, Keith, if you want to jump in, we're celebrating Michael Caine's birthday, which was actually 2 weeks ago, but
right.
Our schedule was screwed up, so.
Well, that's the reason we had to celebrate Leonard Nimoy's today because his birthday was just the other day.
Yeah.
And I wasn't,
Michael Caine is still with us.
Yes.
I don't want to be a dick, but it's weird wishing people who are dead's birthdays.
Ouch.
Live long. Wait, no, I can't say that to Spock.
Oh my!
All right, guys.
Take it easy, Gary. Good to see you, man.
I'll see you guys.
See you later, bud.
But here's, Gary is right. Phoebe as a character, everybody has someone that they pair off with that they can hang out with and do stuff with, and Phoebe feels lost. But I will also say this. Trevor, played by Finn Wolfhard, also, they gave him like this. His whole thing was chasing the spud around. And that's not much. He wants to be out there driving the car. He wants to be part of the excitement of being a Ghostbuster. Because outside of that, everything else bores him. Mm-hmm. He's not made like his sister. He's not someone who's into studying and he wants to.
He's Winston in the original movie.
Yeah, Winston and also he's just a teenage boy. And my thing was, you should have had something else for him to do, or have him also be as lost as his sister. A little bit. Not finding his place, because really the Ghostbusters really is an organization, a business set up by 3 doctors who then hired someone to work with them, plus Janine. And you can you can reconfigure that any which way, but you know, Trevor's still going to need something to do. Because when you think about it, if everybody's doing exactly what they should be doing, Trevor has almost next to nothing to do.
Yeah.
Except drive the car, which is really what he wants to do. That's all he wants to do. I think that they needed to cut out a few characters, although, again, I've heard some people say, well, they should have cut out podcast. You need podcast, because podcast is part of the future of the Ghostbusters. Exactly. It's not like Dan Aykroyd's going to be around a long time, and you get people saying, well, you know, it should be Patton Oswalt. No, it shouldn't be. It should be podcast. He enjoys this. He's growing up with this. You know, to have him learn from Ray, who is a doctor. You got to remember, yes, Ray is a doctor.
A doctor who respects podcasts.
That's right.
Remember, he was his only subscriber.
That's right. He wouldn't spend his time listening to podcasts unless he actually respected this young man, and vice versa. You know, plus, for better or for worse, I mean, Ray has fought Gozer twice and won. Podcast fought Gozer once and won. I mean, he's at an age where realizing and finding out that there's this greater world out there. Remember, he's from Oklahoma. He finds out that all this stuff is real. And so to not write to that, that's a missed opportunity. And then with Trevor, I mean, you didn't decide to continue the whole thing with Trevor trying to get with Lucky. Plus, I still can't figure that part out. What's she doing in the movie? Yes. I like her. But again, she's from Oklahoma. How are you explaining what she's doing in New York City?
That should be Phoebe.
Well, Phoebe, look, here's the thing. After she gets, quote unquote, busted, okay, I'm pretty sure Walter Peck and everybody downtown didn't just kick her off of trying to bust Ghost. You got to remember, the original proton pack was an unlicensed nuclear accelerator.
Right.
He probably made it so that she couldn't even have any contact with that equipment. Remember, she's too young. And he used to work for the federal government, for the EPA. He would know the regulations on that. You know, it sounded like they just needed another script rewrite for a lot of this stuff to tighten everything up. Mainly just a rewrite of the basic story so that then you could add the dialogue. I would have worked on that basic story. Look, Patton Oswalt, you can cut out. Kamel, you can keep because of who he is and what he means to the story. Okay.
Now, Camille's character, you can keep it.
Yes.
But make him a serious character.
Yes. Make him someone that's lost. He's like a version of Dana Barrett, except that whereas Dana was a victim of a lot of the stuff, he has the power, Kamel's character has the power to actually do something, and he doesn't realize it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you needed, since the way Hollywood is right now, and you needed to have a certain number of females in the film, here's what I would have done. Since they had decided to do a lot of stuff like that, and given what the backstory to Kamel's past is with his grandmother and the object and everything else, instead of making it a guy, they should have just hired a woman to play the part rather than Kamel being a man. Mm-hmm. That way it would have kept in that whole power thing could have been something passed down through all the female members of the family.
Mm. The force is female.
Force is female. There
and,
it is.
And again, it's the thing with Phoebe is the fact that she, as they established in the first film, what they could have kept going is just the fact that she is young. You have to keep reminding yourself that she is a extremely smart young lady, but she's young, and there's not a lot you can do prior to being legally able to do stuff. If you're someone that has an extremely high IQ but you're young, you're screwed unless you can find something that totally interests you. I think she should have either spent her time doing research with Podcast and Ray, or they should have found something else for her to do. Maybe have her be the one that discovered a new way of creating the proton packs, considering that in the last movie, she fixed the proton pack that was there. Albeit with her grandfather's ghost, but she was smart enough not to base. Because look, given the power of that thing, she could have very easily accidentally had done something, and blown herself up. So
don't cross the streams. Don't do it.
Again, there's a lot that could have been done with this to really improve it. The basic story was there, but it was almost like when they were writing it, they sort of lost track of all these characters. And I haven't even gotten around to Gerry and their mom. I had heard on a podcast that somebody had suggested that what they should do is that they get rid of all of the older Ghostbusters and decided to go with this younger cast, that Egon's daughter should just basically be the one in charge of the firehouse. She should be the one that is the new version of Janine. She handles all their business affairs.
Yes. And
okay.
Business and logistics.
And then you've got Gerry, who, again, it would have been nice for him to use some of the knowledge that he had, given the fact that there were a lot of quakes throughout New York City, which is kind of what was his area of study in the last movie. Surprising that not a lot of that knowledge came into any use for this film. But he's trying to work a relationship with their mother. That's fine. You've got Phoebe helping to create the next generation of ghost weapons and traps. You have Podcast, who can do all of the research necessary. I mean, and then you've got Trevor, who's going to be your driver. He's your guy who's going to... He's your pack mule, and he's your driver, You tell him what to aim and shoot at, he'll do it. But, I mean... So, I mean, if they're going to get another movie out of this, that would be my advice. Go ahead and again, one last thing, because I thought of this the other day. You have Winston that's already set up this paranormal research. How come he never called Ray to head that up?
Questions. They abound.
I mean, just saying. Again, as I said earlier, Ray is a doctor. Everybody that was a Ghostbuster is a doctor except Winston. I'm not saying he would have had to have allowed Venkman into his paranormal research group. But since it all seemed to be science-based, why wouldn't he have contacted Ray to be a part of this group?
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody suggested they should just go ahead and do like another movie, like a side movie, with somebody suggested that it should be about Ray and Phoebe going to tackle ghosts, and I said, no, if you're going to do this, make it about Ray, Podcast, and maybe Phoebe. Because I'm telling you right now, McKenna Grace, she's a very good actress, and she's done a lot of stuff. She's probably going to be one of your more expensive actors in the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you can make a side movie with just 3 people in it, put her in it. But if she's going to be difficult, make it about Ray and make it about Podcast, and keep it simple.
Well, I guarantee you, with the names that were in this one, they spent some money on it. And I'm looking at
not as much as you think.
I'm looking at the box office receipts right now, and it's not. Now I don't know where it's opened at worldwide, but Outside the U.S., it's only made 16 million.
Dude,
So-
in my theater, we were like 20 people.
Yeah, I was fixing to say the turnout's not good for this movie. You know, and I don't know what's up with that because it is a beloved franchise. Like I said, I heard Afterlife was good. It's just that show's been on the back burner for me. I haven't gotten to it, you know. But this one, from what I saw in the trailer, it looks like what my buddy likes to call a CGI nightmare, man. It's just, you know, it looks like too much in one flick.
You know what? And it is. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but again, they just needed this script needed a little more work.
Was Paul Rudd and the two heavy hitting comedy acts in that show are friggin' Bill Murray and Paul Rudd. Were they enough to save that movie?
Save? No.
No.
Keep it afloat? Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, it
sounds like they've got some good stuff. You guys are talking about the new characters like they matter. So that's good. That's more a testament to me that Afterlife is good. They set them up rather well in Afterlife, apparently, because you guys are talking about problems with them in this movie. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. Bill has a problem in so much as that, and it's something that Dan Aykroyd has talked about before, that you can contact Bill, and then it's all about whether or not Bill will show up. Okay?
Yep.
That's a bit of a problem when you're making a movie. If you're not sure one of your stars is actually going to decide to show up that day. So Bill participates as much as Bill wants to. So for all those people who want to really get mad at this movie or for the last film, you got to understand nobody makes Bill Murray do anything. And considering how he actually works with how you get in contact with him to get him to be in your movies, it's a miracle if he decides to even return your phone call. Okay? Yeah. Bill Murray does exactly what Bill Murray wants to do.
Yeah. He's a diva. It's been a well-known fact. He's been a diva for a long time. Yeah.
So you make allowances for whether or not he decides to show up, and you just go on with the rest of what you're doing. That's the reason why, to make any future Ghostbusters movies, you should just go ahead and plan not to have Peter in the film.
Yeah.
And then if he decides he wants to show up, then you write him a sequence to come in. So for the rest of... Look, again, I think this goes back to what happened with Ghostbusters 2. I think he felt that Ghostbusters 2 and what they did with that screwed him. Is really what it came down to. You know, he had... When they were discussing doing the second film, his only thing was, you know, let's make sure it's not something that is a waste of our times. And I think ultimately he thinks that Ghostbusters 2 was a waste of his time. And you know what? I agree with him. Ghostbusters 2 was a waste of his time.
Yeah.
Because that film was more about entertaining a version of the audience that didn't yet exist, which is, if you're a fan of the Ghostbusters cartoon series, Ghostbusters 2 is a good movie to you. If you're not, then it's not.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And I'm just not a fan of the cartoon series. Thus, Ghostbusters 2 does not play well for me.
Yeah. It didn't for me either. I told you that's when I checked out of it. So, you know, I love the first movie. I'll watch the first movie. I quote the first movie all the damn time. Anytime somebody messes up, I'm like, "What did you do, Ray?"
and that's the problem with the 2016 film. Yeah. It's the fact that it didn't know what it wanted to be. It tries to be too many things, in so much as that, you know, you have the director of a person who's directed many comedies, some of them very adult and very raunchy.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know which direction you're going, that plays havoc with your ability to be able to entertain.
Yeah.
And the thing about the 2016 film was they had no earthly idea who they were aiming that movie at.
Yeah.
You know, and so as I said, even back then after leaving the theater watching the movie, I said, look, you cut out all of the scenes where they curse or have any blue humor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best darn Nickelodeon movie you've ever seen.
Right.
You know, it's a Nickelodeon movie, just has some extra curse words and a few awkward situations. You cut those out, that's a film that any parent would be happy to show their kids.
Right.
You know. But
Hojo says sounds like a douche talking about Murray. Yeah, he's a well-known one, boys and girls. The only problem with it is he's extremely talented.
He is talented.
Really is. The guy has perfect comic timing, and he always has. He was, when I would used to watch Keith. I know as a kid you probably stayed up on Saturday nights to watch the Not Ready for Primetime Players.
Yep.
And his stuff was always the highlight of the show, man. It really was. From the lounge singer to all those other things he did, Yeah, it's craziness. But he is a douche, no doubt about it. He marches to the beat of his own drum and nobody else's, no doubt.
I just think that there is a lot to that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more to that story and how and why he acts the way that he does than we know.
Yeah.
But you know what? Because of that, it makes me excited for the new movie that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
That might cover some of that. And it's a movie called SNL 1975.
Really? They're making a movie about the Not Ready for Primetime Players at the beginning?
They are making a movie. It's chronicling the events that led up to the premiere episode of Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
And so they have a cast. In fact, the director of the film is the guy who directed the last Ghostbusters movie, Jason Reitman, because Jason Reitman did not direct this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's only producing. Well, he's directing this other movie.
Wow.
And
sounds cool, man.
It's you've got several named people who are playing particular parts.
I'm gonna have to look this up because I want to see who's playing Belushi. He was my hero. I loved that guy. Loved him.
It's called SNL 1975.
Wow.
And actor Dylan O'Brien is playing Dan Aykroyd.
Wow.
And wow, it's just Finn Wolfhard's actually in the movie. He's playing an NBC page. So yeah, it's I just yeah. Anyway, it's a lot of people, a lot of parts, and they are covering things that even I didn't think that they would cover, and have certain characters in there, some of whom I'd forgotten about, like Jim Henson. I forgot that Jim Henson was a part of Saturday Night Live originally.
Yeah. They've got J.K. Simmons playing Milton Berle. Wow. Yeah, this is okay. I'm glad for no reason. I'm glad I came on today just to find this out because I'm a huge fan.
So Corey Michael Smith, who was the Riddler on Gotham, he's playing Chevy Chase.
Wow. Gabriel LaBelle, who is this guy playing Lorne Michaels? That's some heavy shoes to fill right there.
Cooper Hoffman. Wow, he's playing Dick Ebersol.
Wow.
Here we go. Matt Wood. Matt Wood's the guy playing John Belushi.
Matt Wood. Let me see. I don't see him here. Hang on.
And Kim Matula is playing Jane Curtin. Ella Hunt is Gilda Radner. Let's see. Emily Farms playing Lorraine Newman. Nicholas Pod. Oh, I can't say that because that might be plot spoiler for those that weren't old enough to know.
Wow, this guy looks like Belushi.
Yeah.
Matt Wood looks like him. Oh my gosh.
So if you put Dylan O'Brien next to Matt Wood, that's Belushi and Aykroyd.
Wow. I hope that movie does well because, man, I'd love to see younger people see what that was all about and how much fun that was, man.
Well, the terror of putting on a live show and especially what has become a legend of sorts about the launch of Saturday Night Live. Nicholas Podney is Billy Crystal.
Oh, God. Wow.
So if you know the story of Billy Crystal and what that has to do with Chevy Chase and eventually with one person who will not be in this movie, because he wasn't a part of what they were doing. But
they've even got Al Franken portrayed in it too.
Yeah, because he was a writer.
Yeah,
originally,
no doubt.
Chevy Chase and Al Franken were originally hired as writers. But
oh man, I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, I thought everybody knew about this.
I did not know about this one. That's awesome. I can't wait, dude. That's going to be great. Oh, you guys just don't know. When this was on the air, everybody stayed up.
Everybody,
night.
Everybody was.
Oh my God.
You go to school and all your friends would be doing their own bits. You know, you'd recreate. Yeah,
the killer bees and the land shark and all that shit, man. Dude,
a generation of comedians were launched because of this show.
Because of that one show. I mean, everybody that was the not ready for primetime players. I think the least successful one was probably Garrett Morris. And he still had a successful career.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He was on television forever.
Yep.
But, you know, Gilda Radner and friggin' Jane Curtin. And I mean, they were the smaller players filling gaps, but God, they were so talented, man. And it's not like it wasn't even back then. They had bad skits occasionally, but they were rare. Most of the stuff they did was fall down hilarious, man. It really was. The thing I loved about it was the commercials that they shot. Those were great.
And the short films. They'd always had short films on Saturday Night Live.
I cannot watch the one that Belushi did.
Yeah, in the grave, dancing on everybody's grave.
Dancing in the graveyard, dude.
Yeah,
how profound is that today? Knowing how short his life was going to be, you know.
Well, also, did you like the one where Belushi and Aykroyd are cops and they go all the way out to California and they find what's his name in bed? It's
I may not have seen that one. It doesn't ring any bells.
Oh man, Brian Wilson. They get Brian Wilson out of bed and take him to the beach and put him in the ocean.
Really?
And trying to because that's during that period of time when Brian Wilson was spending all his time in bed.
Yeah.
He wasn't really working with the Beach Boys too much.
No.
And it was their way of trying to get him back to life.
On his feet, damn it. Let's go.
Get out of bed. Come on.
Beach Boy. Let's go. That sounds right. That sounds about right. But man, it was so good. Those guys, I mean, every last one of them were just so talented. And we had so many spin-off things from that. I mean, the Blues Brothers became a franchise of its own. It got so big. And those guys were just trying to branch out and do something fun. That's all they were trying to do when they did the Blues Brothers, when they recorded that album. And it became such a huge hit that they ended up opening House of Blues in every major city in the United States. I mean, it was crazy how they blew up. But, you know,
whoa.
It's going to be interesting to see how they portray Belushi. I hope they show his addiction problem because that's important. I don't know if you read the book Wired that Woodward wrote about him. It's a shame what happened to him. And what the shame of it is, he knew how bad off he was. I mean, he had a guy, if you remember at the time, there was a dude, even if you didn't watch the sport, you saw him on foot powder commercials, a guy named Bill Superfoot Wallace. He was hanging out with him there near the end, working out with him and stuff, and he kept him around just to stop him from doing the crazy shit he was doing. And
Mhm.
it was one of the nights when he got away from Bill and ended up in that bungalow with that girl. And yeah, it was all over. And from what the book Woodward wrote, the cops had to restrain Bill Superfoot Wallace. He showed up on the scene and was so upset. He was fighting everybody, and they had to put him in cuffs and throw him in the back of a car. He was so upset, and it's a sad story that somebody that talented is fueled by a desire to just get consumed by something that was just destroying their lives. You know what I mean?
And did he write about the last person to see him alive?
Yeah, I'm sure he did, but I don't remember exactly.
It was Robin Williams.
The girl that was with him, right?
Yeah, but no. It was Robin Williams. Well,
okay.
Robin Williams was the last male to see him alive.
Okay.
And left just before everything went down.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed with John, and I think he knew about the fact that John had problems and had stayed with John. So when John passed away, Robin took it hard because had he stayed, his mind,
right in his mind, but we all know that's not true.
No,
he was destined to do this to himself. It's just he just never got out of it. I've mentioned before, I work in the rehab business, and I'm a resident manager at a rehab, and it's a shame to see something like that just consume somebody. These are talented people. I have never met an addict that wasn't smart, wasn't brilliant in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And it's just a shame to see that get derailed into something that is just a waste of their time and energy and everything. It really is. It's sad. But I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be cool. I can't wait.
I will say that for all the rest of you, you can go ahead and Google or go and get to Deadline. Deadline has this whole thing. Even NBC has a little thing on the original cast from 75. I will say, if you've never heard the story, you've got two choices. You can go and read it and be excited, or you can just let it ride until you see the movie. But there's a lot of surprises, a lot of drama leading up to the premiere of Saturday Night Live, and the fact
none of it would have happened without Lorne Michaels, though.
Yeah,
the guy. If you want to know who Lorne Michaels is and the way he talks and everything, just watch Mike Myers' Austin Powers series. He's Dr. Evil. That's Lorne Michaels. Mike said he modeled Dr. Evil after Lorne Michaels, the way he talks and everything. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Man. That's going to be funny.
I learned one thing watching the cast of Ghostbusters, and they had talked about, it was talked about that one of the things that Dan Aykroyd brought up to Finn Wolfhard and McKenna Grace. And Finn had talked about the fact that he had told him that during his time on Saturday Night Live, Dan had a motorcycle. Yeah. And he would take his motorcycle, he'd ride it every place. And then when he would go home, because he would, they'd stop doing the show and he'd go home, he'd ride his motorcycle into his apartment building, onto the elevator, onto his floor, and park it inside of his apartment.
Yeah. Every time I think of Dan Aykroyd back then, I think of D-Day in National Lampoon's Animal House. Yes. That seems like that's him, Yeah. The mad scientist that rides a bike.
Yep. I mean, listening to blues music, because he's the one that got John Belushi on that.
Yep.
That was really him. And wow.
Had to be influenced after he saw him do the Joe Cocker bit. Had to be influenced by that. Yeah. Oh my God. How great was that? That's one of the greatest pieces of television you'll ever see. Jim Belushi channeling Joe Cocker. Oh my God.
I mean, we could go on for hours.
Yes, we could. We could do an entire a series, weeks of shows about the not ready for primetime players. No doubt.
Because
man.
just the funniest stuff.
It is.
But to everybody that has given of themselves to be here for this show today with me and Joe and Martin, I want to thank you. I definitely would want to thank the Peter Venkman fan site, Hojo, Tim's Talk, Destiny Captain, Dragon Ruse, Boosh, McFadden, Andy Morrow, Anima Confusa, because, you know, she's good like that.
Yeah.
Wolverine 626, Shanatsky, hey Shanatsky, and Lady Penny. So, for myself, Big Joe, and the Atmosphere, and Martin, try to have a better day.
Take care, guys.
See ya.